the Green Bay Packers have the chance to beat the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs 2 months early.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to get $50 instantly when you play $5. We remember what happened in 2019 against the 49ers. We remember what happened in 2021 against the 49ers in the postseason. Embarrassing, dispiriting, franchise-altering, I don't think it is too much to say, losses, particularly in the case of that 2021 team, because it ends up being the last opportunity the Packers have to make a playoff run with both Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, something that may just be done in the NFL because the Jets tried to make it work, and by the way, they didn't. Right now, the Packers sit at 7-3. Now, they're a game back of the Minnesota Vikings, though they don't hold the tiebreaker, but they'll play again. And they're 2 games back of the Detroit Lions, but they are well over 50% by whatever model you want to look at to make the playoffs. Does that mean they're going to make it? No, but they have a very good chance as we stand here today. The 49ers, by contrast, are 5-5. If the Packers beat the 49ers on Sunday at Lambeau Field on national television, their playoff hopes are all but over. Given their schedule, given the way that they've looked so far, at 5-6, given their division, the wild card is over because the Packers would be 8-3. And you still have the Vikings, who are, like I said, a game ahead of the Packers. You still have the Commanders. So, and look, the Rams, the Seahawks, they're not going away. The Cardinals are the team leading the NFC West. The 49ers have already lost to the Rams, just lost to the Seahawks, have already lost to the Cardinals. By the way, 2 of those 3 teams the Packers have already beaten. I heard a lot yesterday on social media about the Packers, and they don't have a signature win. How about exercising the demons of the Matt LaFleur era? The only team, I didn't even mention, you guys, I didn't even mention last year, 2023, when the 49ers beat the Green Bay Packers. The only team in the Matt LaFleur era, not quarterbacked by Tom Brady, to beat the Packers in the playoffs. And by the way, it is depressing that it has been Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy that have done it. But that is where we are right now. But these are 2 teams who are in somewhat similar situations. Neither has played to their potential. And yet the underlying metrics still say that these are 2 very good teams. This is not, though, the kind of, you watch them play against the Seahawks. And our pal Alex Clancy over at Locked On Cardinals, he was there. He said it was 2 teams that looked disinterested. For a divisional rivalry game, they looked disinterested. And if you want to say, well, the 49ers are geared up to play the Packers, it was a trap game, they can't afford to think that way. They've already lost too many games to feel that way. Trap game, looking forward to a big matchup. They can't do that. They don't have the luxury of doing that. I think the reality is their quarterback is playing significantly worse. In fact, if anyone on this team, in terms of who earns their sacks, Brock Purdy is the number one cause of sacks on the 49ers offense, more than any of the individual offensive linemen. It is Brock Purdy. Now, the line overall is responsible for the most, but you get what I'm saying. No Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle was apparently close to playing last week, but that's not a guarantee he's going to play this week. Nick Bosa is a coin flip to play. And for as good as Fred Warner is, Devondre Campbell has been one of the worst, like a Quay Walker level bad starter in San Francisco, if not, frankly, worse. If there's any regular starter at linebacker who's been worse than Quay in the NFC this year, it's been Devondre Campbell. Targeted something like 40 of 46 targets have been completed against him. Leads the team in missed tackles, more than one a game. It's been a disaster. And there's already conversations about big shakeups coming this offseason. I was talking to a 49ers content creator, who I won't name. He didn't give me permission to offer this, but he told me he thinks this is it. That this team is not making the playoffs, that this was their window and they missed it and it's over. That this team is just not capable of playing well enough to beat the best teams in the NFC, to win enough games to make the playoffs. And when you have to pay Brock Purdy in the offseason, they may have to trade Deebo Samuel in the offseason. Trent Williams could retire. Then what do you do? The Packers are 7-3 and a little bit lucky, let's be honest, to be 7-3. Now, they were a little bit unlucky to, for example, that Eagles game, a little unlucky to lose that one. So, how good are the Packers? Are they capable of beating this 49ers team? The answer is unequivocally yes. And it's the reason that you are so frustrated with this team. You know how good they are capable of playing. And what we saw last year is around this time, the light switch turned on for them. They found a groove. And they look like one of the best teams in the NFL. They went into Santa Clara and they almost beat the 49ers. 55 minutes they outplayed that team. It was one drive, basically, that ended their season. And that was after Darnell Savage dropped a gift interception, after Keyshawn Nixon dropped an interception, after a horrible spot on a fourth down call, after a horrible penalty on a QB sneak where John Runyon Jr. allegedly lines up in the neutral zone. You watch the Eagles run that tush-push play, and they are all lined up in the neutral zone. It was a gobsmackingly bad penalty. And that, I hear the complaints about the defense. That defense was so much worse than the one that we see right now. So much less talented. I understand the pass rush has underperformed, but look at the players who are playing for this team. The safety room is infinitely better. And you have a what I think is generally a deeper middle of the field defense now. I think Edgerrin Cooper gives you impact plays you were not getting last year, even without Devondre Campbell. I'd like to see fewer Quay Walker reps. This is a better Packers team. This is a better Packers offense than they were last year. Third by DVOA with a backup quarterback for 2.5 games and your starter playing hurt for essentially the entire season outside of 2 games. They've played 10. He's missed 2. He's been healthy for 2. Most of the Eagles game, even though that game was played on an ice rink. And then most of this most recent game, which was by far the best he had looked physically all season, 15.4 yards per attempt against a top 5 Bears passing defense. 15.4 yards per attempt. Aaron Rodgers played for 2 decades, won 4 MVPs. Brett Favre played for 2 decades, won 3 MVPs. Each guy won a Super Bowl. None of them have a game where they attempted enough passes and qualified and had 15 yards an attempt. Didn't happen. Jordan Love just had the most efficient passing game of the modern Packers era. Yes, he had the interception. But this team, they did not come out super focused against the Bears. They did not come out of the bye week. And this has been, unfortunately, a hallmark of Matt LaFleur teams. In the regular season, in the playoffs, it's been a little bit different. They came out against the Seahawks and looked great. We're leading in that game. In fact, they needed to hold on to win that game. But this team right now, they have the chance to potentially put the nail in the coffin of their biggest nemesis, to face down the boss at the end of a video game, or to face down the serial killer at the end of a horror movie, and to finally burn the house down with the killer inside. Those are graphic metaphors, I understand, but that is the level of fear that the 49ers engender among Packers fans. It seems an apt metaphor in this case. If they can do it, they very well may assure they don't have to see this 49ers team in the postseason. If you can't get up for that, see a doctor. See a doctor. There is one thing that has held the Packers back, and it's related to something we talked about yesterday, these high leverage moments. We're going to talk about them next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Now you can leverage your knowledge to win money playing daily fantasy sports with Prize Picks. You just pick more or less than at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long at Prize Picks. As little as 4 correct picks. So you put 4 players together and you decide if they're going to produce more or less than the stat line set by Prize Picks. You don't have to do it. Prize Picks sets it. And you can win, get this, up to 100 times your money. 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. What are you waiting for? Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Plus, when you win, you can get your money out in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the bonus. It's $50 guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. So what are you waiting for? Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Zbiotics. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Zbiotics is the first genetically engineered probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Ever happened to you? It's happened to me. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's that byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for the way you feel the next day after you have a little too much to drink. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down that byproduct. Just remember to take Zbiotics, make it your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best the next day. So make it your first drink. Pace yourself, get a good night's sleep, and then wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to Zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. Zbiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied with for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to Zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Yesterday, I told you why I wasn't worried about the Green Bay Packers offense. And we talked about the losses, all the yards they put up in the losses, and why they're going to figure it out, right? The scoring is going to come at some point. The last 2 weeks in games that have spooked Packers fans, the Lions and the Bears have combined to go 5 for 5 on 4th down. The Lions scored 2 touchdowns on 4th down. They were 4 of 12 on 3rd down, but 2 of 2 on 4th down with 2 touchdowns. This is not a sustainable way for teams to beat the Packers, but in one game, it can happen. And so I wrote about this today for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. So 2 things can be true. and this is an important point as we head down the stretch here. If you want to predict what's going to happen, it is important to look at the things that are repeatable. So early down production, for example, of a quarterback is more indicative of what they are going to be in the future than their performance on third down. Great quarterbacks tend to be better on third down. That is true, but it's also more volatile because it's a smaller sample size. 2 downs is more than 1 down. And what happens if you don't get it on third down is you punt. So it's a more important down. So it can sometimes be hard to try and weave through all of these stats and figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. What the Packers are missing right now, and I have consistently said this, there's this old adage, players not plays. I don't know that I believe that always. I think on offense, we're seeing it more and more. Matt LaFleur can be a player caliber impact. So like if you have a star player, you have Julio Jones, you have Jamar Chase, you can just dial up their number and they can go make a play for you. I think Matt LaFleur is the kind of coach who is worth that to his team. I think he's that good as a play caller, that good as a play designer. I don't think Sunday was his best performance by any means, but I think in a big game, we saw this against Dallas. It was a ton of tendency breakers. Dallas was ready for a lot of their core stuff. And so the Packers, if the Cowboys are expecting, a crossing route, it's a blaze out. It's a little double move. It's a post corner. It's something to give them the play off the play. And the Packers just killed them with that stuff. Just killed them. It was a Matt LaFleur game plan game. And then Jordan Love was just on another planet for most of it. And then you get, 2 interceptions, one in what is essentially your own red zone when you get the ball back, and then you get a pick six. And that's how you blow out a team in the postseason. The Packers don't have, making comparisons of this 2010 team yesterday on social media. They don't have Clay Matthews on this team. They don't have Charles Woodson on this team. But don't forget that 2010 team relied on Eric Walden to make big plays for them over the course of the season and in the playoffs. They relied on Brandon Chiller, on Brandon Jackson, on Donald Lee, on Charlie Pepra, interception against Jay Cutler in the Week 17 game that ultimately gets them into the postseason, that allows them to go on the run that they do. You don't win the Super Bowl without those players. This team has enough of those pieces. They need their best players in these high leverage moments to show up. Think of what the Lions did on 4th and 1 at the goal line. It's a little option route. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he beats Keyshawn Nixon. Jared Goff goes to their best player. Well, if Jair Alexander is healthy, it's Jair Alexander in that spot instead of Keyshawn Nixon. In the case of the Bears on 3rd and long, it's Kingsley Enagbare. He's got to make that play. Caleb gets out of that sack. Well, you traded Preston Smith. He didn't want to be there. Wasn't a great fit for the defense. Can you get something more out of Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox, Kingsley Enagbare? On 4th and 2, Caleb Williams, they're throwing a fade ball against press man coverage on 4th and 2. It's got to be a perfect throw, and it is. That's just players making plays. Sometimes that's going to happen. For the Packers, what does that look like? Well, Jordan Love is going to throw slot fades on 4th down. Like we've seen him do that. It's going to have to be Jordan Love on offense. And Matt LaFleur. On 3rd and 6, you've got to have a great play. And if you don't have a great play, Jordan Love's got to make a play. In the red zone, you've got to have better play calls. The commitment to running the ball, I think, has been a little over-aggressive in terms of trying to run the ball. It's conservative when you think of it in the grand scheme. And Matt LaFleur said, if I would have it again, I might run the ball one more time. I was like, no, Matt. Oh my gosh. No. Now, maybe if they get 3 yards and it's 4th and 3 at the goal line, I don't think first of all, no one is questioning whether you take the points because you go, that's an auto green light go. But what that allows you to do is now the running game is still part of what you could potentially get to. So now hard play action from the 3 might actually work, whereas hard play action from the 6, no one really cares. This is going to be about Jordan Love in the high leverage moments. That's what it was last year. And in the end, he threw the interceptions at the end of that 49ers game. In the end, Darnell Savage couldn't make those plays. Keyshawn Nixon couldn't make those plays. You are ultimately defined by how you do in these high leverage moments, even if they aren't sustainable, projectable moving forward. It doesn't matter what happens. It's a 1-game sample. So the Packers are going to need their best players to step forward. They're going to need Kenny Clark to find a way to get healthy. I know the toe is bothering him. He gets double teamed at a rate as high as any defensive tackle in the league. ESPN put those numbers out, but he hasn't had a pressure in 2 weeks. He's not impacting the game right now. Carl Brooks is. We're seeing Devontae Wyatt make some plays. TJ Slayton had the sack on that last drive. Kenny Clark is nowhere to be found. I keep saying I don't think he forgot how to be an impact player. I don't think he just forgot how to play football, but he's searching right now for it. I think Rashawn Gary has come on in a big way. 16 pressures over the last 4 weeks. Had 5 and was impactful in the run game against the Bears. I know that's not a great offensive line, but Braxton Jones is a solid left tackle, and Rashawn Gary beat him a couple times, including for a sack on that last drive. He's playing with more power. He's not trying to be Nick Bosa. He's trying to be Rashawn Gary, and it turns out that version of Rashawn Gary is a good player. We've seen Rashawn Gary in big moments. The Rams playoff game, big moments. The 49ers in 2021, Rashawn Gary was unbelievable in that game. That player's still in there. He's not just gone. The high leverage moments define your season, even if it is the case that over the course of the year you go, is that a sustainable way? It's like the Rockets. They're not going to miss 24 straight threes or whatever it was. That's crazy. But then they did, and they lost. In 2018, whenever the Lamar Jackson first MVP run, couldn't have been 2018, 2017. They were the 4th down team. There were stories written about their analytics team and, they're going on 4th down all the time. And then in the postseason, they go for 4th down and they don't get a couple of them and they lose. They were getting value. They were plus EV on all these decisions over the course of the season. And in one game, it can cost you. So these moments, like the high leverage moments, were the biggest reason the Packers lost to the Lions. Lions fans are going to say, well, we just made those plays. No, those are a little fluky, a little lucky. Yes, going for 4th down, that's who you are. That's what you do. But when you're 4 of 12 on 3rd down, when you're averaging under 5 yards per play, the odds of you getting those plays in any situation is low. And then in a game like that, it's even lower. It is a little bit lucky. And to win a Super Bowl, you have to get a little bit lucky. Now, if the Packers want to beat the 49ers on Sunday, they're going to have to get a little bit lucky. They're going to have to do something else. That is run the dang ball. We talk about that to close out Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity. So don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they've not changed the basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including free market economics, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. They've got music classes, history classes, art classes, all kinds of great stuff for you at Hillsdale College. Courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go deeper with reading, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Maybe I need an English class. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. There's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop for Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. When the Packers nearly beat the 49ers 10 months ago, one of the reasons was the Packers ran the ball on that 49ers team. And Aaron Jones broke off a big run. And in fact, if Aaron Jones had scored on that run, it might have changed everything for the Green Bay Packers in that game. He didn't, and so it didn't. But that 49ers team was not great against the run. This 49ers team is not great against the run. They're 19th in run defense DVOA. Aaron Jones in that postseason game had 18 carries for 108 yards. They were able to run the ball with efficiency, broke off a 53-yarder. Now they weren't, breaking off big chunks every run, obviously. So if he's got a 53-yard run, that means he had 17 carries for 55 yards the rest of the game. But Emmanuel Wilson had 4 yards per carry. Jaden Reed had a little run. This is a different version of the Packers run game than the 49ers have seen. It's more diverse. Josh Jacobs is a different kind of runner, a more downhill physical power runner who can still break off big chunks. And then you still have Emmanuel Wilson. You still have the gadget plays with Jaden Reed and Bo Melton on jet sweeps and orbit motion and orbit return and all the things that they can bring to bear. Don't forget who is in those offensive meeting rooms this week. The architect of the 49ers defense, Robert Saleh. He knows where its weak points are better than anybody. He knows how to attack it. He knows the weaknesses in this personnel, even though it's not the exact same personnel as he had when he was there. He also remembers ways to attack Kyle Shanahan. He adapted his whole defense because of Kyle Shanahan. But for this Packers offense, Jordan Love is absolutely breaking down the doors to get a chance to redeem himself from the postseason. All of these receivers, it wasn't like that was a drop fest, but they want to make every play on Sunday for their quarterback because they know what's at stake. They know that they can end the 49ers season here. They're at home. They know that they got away with one against the Chicago Bears. They know they're a good football team, and they know that if they play to their potential, they can beat anybody, anywhere, at any time. They also know, or at least they better know, what the questions are going to be if they lose. Who have they beaten? What's the signature win? Why can't they ever beat the 49ers? Expect play action. Expect them to take advantage of Devondre Campbell in this football game. And if you can run the ball, you can do that. This 49ers team, you've seen it and you saw it on that last drive. They let the Seahawks just go right down the field. Just right down the field. They have looked out of sorts all season. And their talent is enough that they've still been winning games. And again, the underlying metrics say that this is still a good team. But they have not looked like a cohesive team all season. Now, either have the Packers, but they blew out the Cardinals, a team that beat the 49ers the week before. That was before the Cardinals turned into an unbeatable threshing machine over the last few weeks. So this Packers team has the tools. They have the game plan. They have better players this time around. And they have a chance to get the monkey off of their back now versus having to go to Santa Clara or even hosting the game. But neither one of these teams, I suppose the 49ers could win the division, but the Packers are going to make it very difficult for that to be the case if they beat the 49ers on Sunday. Packers are over 90% win probability or playoff probability if they win. If they lose, they're still better than 50-50, but it's not as good. It's in that 60 to 70 range, depending on where you look. And the 49ers, we're talking about teens, low 20s in terms of percent chance to make the playoffs if they lose this game. 5-6 they fall to. In a conference where you probably need to be 10-7 to get in. This is a chance for the Packers to announce themselves as, at the very least, the biggest competition to the Lions in the NFC. I think a lot of people still think it's the 49ers. So you got to beat them. Beat them now so you don't have to beat them later. And you can beat them if you run the ball. This team is susceptible against the run. It sets up your play action. It is everything you want to be as a team. So just go do it. Just go do it. And find that turnover, that one turnover against Brock Purdy. That's the one you need. He's going to throw it to you. You got to catch it when he does. We're going to have Brian Peacock on the show tomorrow for a crossover Thursday. And then Dante Whitner, former San Francisco 49er and former pupil of Jeff Hafley, joins us on the show on Friday. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. We're on Blue Sky now, Twitter, Instagram, all the good ones. Some of the not so good ones, who knows? I don't know. We're there. YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Great week to be a Packers fan. Awesome game coming up on Sunday. So we're here to bring you all the good stuff too, so you can stay locked on Packers.